if there's ever an opportunity over at Audiomack, just remember me. And a couple of months later, that's exactly what happened. In 2020, I ended up getting my first role with Audiomack as a social media editor and curator. And throughout the years, I was able to, succeed and grow within the company to become what I am today. I always say that I'm a student, so I'm always learning. So that's the beauty also in networking. You're always going to meet someone that you could learn something out of, or it will give you an opportunity. So always make sure that who you surround yourself with aligns with what you want to do, and be clear about that as well. I would tell my younger self, look, you did exactly what you wanted to do, and you're helping people along the way, which is the most important thing.
Hola, amiga, and welcome to the Latina Leadership Podcast, the podcast by Latinas for all women. So get ready, because today's conversation is really special. Hi, welcome to another episode of the Latina Leadership Podcast. I'm here with Gineyda. Gineyda, please introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gineyda. I am the Director of Marketing and Latin Strategy over at Audiomack, a music streaming platform that focuses on artist discovery and champion artists.
And Gineyda, I did do a little research, and I saw you grew up in Lawrence, Massachusetts. So tell me about your Dominican and Puerto Rican roots that have shaped you today, and also growing up in Massachusetts.
Yes, I did. I come from the small town, Lawrence. It's full of Dominicans and Puerto Ricans as well. So I grew up very immersed in my culture. Also, my dad is Dominican, and he's lived in the country my entire life. So I would go spend summers over there, and really would be influenced by the music growing up. In like early 90s, 2000s, I listened to a lot of like R&B and hip hop. But when I would go to the Dominican Republic, it'd be more the cultural music over there, bachata, merengue. And then from my Puerto Rican side of my family, a lot of reggaeton at the time. Daddy Yankee was just coming out, Zion and Lennox and other artists as such. So I was really immersed in a lot of music. I consider myself like a music encyclopedia, just because I love all sounds of music across the board, all genres. And I feel very blessed growing up the way that I did, because I got to experience a lot of different things. Lawrence itself, it's, like I said, a small town, borderline poverty. So I was raised by a single mom. Really, it's like exciting for people like myself and other people that I grew up with to have success stories like me in the music industry, which is something that I always loved growing up and I always wanted to be a part of.
And going back to like how music played a role in you growing up, who were some, I know you mentioned some of the artists you were introduced to, but who were your favorite artists?
So I always say that my life, I don't count it by like dates. I count it by music. My timeline of my life is with music, because so I was raised in Lawrence, but high school I did in Florida. So even that shaped my sound of music, because it was something different here. But I could say like my idol is Aaliyah. I grew up listening to her music, and I would always go home after school and just practice her dance videos and things like that. But I think what really shaped me into wanting to pursue music was a trip that I took when I was like 11 years old. It was like a winter break, and my mom took my sister and I to Puerto Rico to visit our grandparents. And one of my uncles was there. He was cleaning his car and he was listening to music, and it was a Zion and Lennox song. And I was just like, what is this? What is this sound? I became obsessed with reggaeton. I went back to Lawrence and just looked up all the music, all the artists at the time. And at the time, there were these blogs. It was like blingblineo.com and flowhot.net. That kind of was like the music streaming platforms at the time, because they will let you know all the new music that would come out. And I would just obsess over the latest releases and create like my own mixtapes at the time. But really a lot of artists, but those are the ones that I could say at the time: Don Omar, Teo Calderon, Daddy Yankee, Ivy Queen. As far as reggaeton, I also consumed a lot of bachata, so Zacaria Ferreira, and Aventura were really influential to me as well. And from the English Anglo side is like Jay-Z, Aaliyah, and all the other like dope artists that were out in the early 2000s.
That's amazing. And I'm actually curious about your whole education journey as well. I know you just said why you went into that path, but kind of tell me about your time, in school and going into entertainment business.
Yeah, so growing up, I was always into school. I always got good grades. I just always saw school as like my way to succeed beyond the lifestyle that I was around in the city I grew up in. So I always did well academically. At the time, I always knew that I wanted to pursue music. Every time someone would ask me like, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? I would say, I want to help artists. I didn't say a specific career, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I went to high school and I focused a lot in getting good grades. Eventually, like I said, I finished high school in Florida, but I ended up going back to Massachusetts when I graduated. I went to a community college, and at first I was taking like music because that's what I thought I wanted to pursue. And once I got the music theory class, I was like, wait a minute, this isn't the version of music that I wanted to do. What are all these symbols? I cannot. So I went to my advisor and she advised me, if you want to get into music business and try taking like majoring in business and going into business. But kind of similar experience happened to me where I went to change majors to business, and then I had to take accounting. And I was also like, this is not for me either. It's like, where is the middle ground? Where can I do music and business and not have to take these hard classes that I don't understand or I'm not passionate in? So I was advised to pursue liberal arts and take, certain like communication classes and things like that. After getting my associates, I was able to transfer to Florida International University. And same thing at the time, there wasn't really a major in entertainment business at the school. It would mostly be schools like in New York or in LA that would have entertainment business or music business as a major. So I kind of just copied a curriculum from a school in LA, and I compared those courses at Florida International University. And I majored in interdisciplinary studies and kind of just went along the curriculum and took the classes that were similar to be able to get that knowledge. And here I am today.
That's really cool that you kind of copied it from somewhere else. You're like, this is what I need to do to get to where I want.
Yeah, I need to take, business law. I need to do communications. Fine, let's do this. Let's find the classes. So yeah, it was an interesting experience. And I did go fully online because I worked full time as well. So I was able to graduate magna cum laude and work full time.
And I want to learn more. I know you were a social media manager at one point, and that was really interesting to me because I'm a social media manager. So I'm kind of wondering your path to where you are now. Like, how were you a social media manager? And then, because not everyone can get to your role. I know it's probably a hard path to go through. So I was wondering how that is.
Yeah, so like I said, I went to school and I majored in entertainment business, which I was able to take some of those classes as well, like photography and social media. So I had some knowledge there, but I was working at a university at the time for their procurement department, which is finance, like nothing to do with music or entertainment. And then after that, I was working for a law office. So again, nothing to do with music, but I knew once I graduated that I had to like get my foot in the door somehow. Since I was working full time, I couldn't really do any internships while I was in school. So at the time I was living in Orlando, but I knew that I needed to be in Miami to be able to get my foot in the door with the Latin entertainment music industry, since that's the hub here. So I ended up moving in like 2018 to Miami, and I was still working. At that time, I ended up having 3 jobs because when I moved, I got the job at the law office, and then my old boss at the university, she didn't want to see me fully go, and they still needed my help. So I was working part-time for them remotely since it was during their busiest season. And then just going out, networking. I went to this event in Wynwood, and it was like their Latin night. and they would bring a lot of like urban artists to perform and to host. So I would go over there. I ended up speaking to the person that would host the nights and throw those Latin nights. And they ended up giving me an opportunity to do social media management for their entertainment and events marketing company. So I would do that on the weekends while working these other jobs. Eventually, through networking, I was able to connect with someone who was a photographer and would work in music videos. And I ended up being a PA, a production assistant, for some time as well. That's how I got to meet like a lot of artists and really connect with the new wave of artists that were coming out at that time, like Rauw Alejandro and Daleks and Liano. Those were like the R&B wave at the time. And I was able to connect with them and see that growth. So being around that world, I realized this is what I like to do. I like to see the artists from their beginnings and see them grow up and blow up to be these big artists that they are today, like Rauw Alejandro. So it was actually through networking again that I ended up going to an event and meeting the director at the time, who ended up becoming my mentor, which is Max Escobar. He was the director at Audiomack. And we were just having a conversation about like who was the next artist that was going to blow up. And we were kind of like debating about who was next. And I think that really like sparked interest in him. And I let him know like, hey, if there's ever an opportunity over at Audiomack, just remember me. And a couple of months later, that's exactly what happened. In 2020, I ended up getting my first role with Audiomack as a social media editor and curator. And throughout the years, I was able to, you know, succeed and grow within the company to become what I am today.
We wanted to take a quick break to remind you that every week we have incredible conversations just like this one in education, entrepreneurship, pay equity, women's health, and so much more. So be sure to subscribe to us at Latina Leadership Podcast. And let's go back to the video. That is so girl boss. You just literally worked your way up. That's so amazing. And
Yeah,
for those who may not know, who is Audiomack and what do they do?
So Audiomack is a music streaming platform. It was funded in 2012 by Dave Mackley and Pawnee, just these guys who were really into music and supporting artists. And they created this, along with their other co-founders, they created this platform basically for that, to discover artists. And throughout the years, with licensing agreement with like major labels and things like that, we were able to become what Audiomack is today and have a lot of music from all these big artists, like other competitors, to emerging artists. But I think that's what makes me the most passionate about working with a company like Audiomack, is because we focus so much on the discovery, and that's what I enjoy. We have been part of the success of so many artists, and they became really big in Africa and hip hop. And then in 2017, they funded the Latin department, or the Latin division, which is where I'm currently at. And we've had so much success and so much growth throughout the years. And just since I took on this position too, it's just been amazing.
And what does your day-to-day look like as a director of marketing and Latin strategy?
So my day-to-day is always different. Like today, I was gearing up for this podcast, so it looked a little bit different. But, you know, it's just overseeing a team. I say that they're my superstars, and they allow me to be able to multitask and do so many things. But usually it's a little bit of meetings, seeing the releases that are coming up and preparing for that, or as far as editorial support for these releases that come out every week, choosing playlist covers, overseeing and making sure that my social media editor now has everything that she needs to be able to have our social media perform well, and just seeing what opportunities come up for us to be able to support and partner with artists and grow in our respective territories.
And because this has always been your dream to work in music industry, what would you tell your younger self if she saw like where you are today?
I would tell my younger self, look, you did exactly what you wanted to do, and you're helping people along the way, which is the most important thing.
And I'm very interested in, you mentioned people you've met that you got to network with. Who were your mentors going into the position you are today?
I would say definitely, like I mentioned, Max Escobar, the previous director, he was the one that gave me this chance, and I'll always be grateful, as well as Junior, who was the owner of the marketing events company that had the events in Wynwood. I would also say I had a friend who at the time, like early 2000s, there were these video vixens that were very popular because they would come on music videos and host different clubs. And I was able to connect with one who is named Rosa Costa. She's Dominican. And I always looked up to how she was able to, be true to herself, support her family, all while doing what she loved and just being this iconic, like, boss babe. So she was my mentor along the way too, to be able to balance, being true to myself, not feeling like I have to sacrifice, my passion for like wearing makeup and looking good, but also being a director and getting the job done.
And through your work that you've done here at Audiomack, what has been the one you've been most proud of, the project or initiative?
I just think overall, I can highlight specific artists, but it's like a repeat every time. It feels great. Like I just went to Omar Court's Choli, which is like the biggest arena in Puerto Rico. He just did his first one, and that's really where artists are evangelized as like the superstars. If you're able to like sell out a Choli, sell out that arena, then you basically made it in Puerto Rico. And he did it a couple of weeks ago, and he was an artist that we supported since the beginning. I mean, back in 2020, we were the first platform that he did an interview with. So to be able to experience that and see him sell out those 3 shows and become the superstar that we knew and that I knew he would be is amazing. And it's the same thing I could say for like Jay Wheeler, for Javi in the Música Mexicana side. Marca Registrada is another band from Mexico that we supported since their beginnings, and they all just became these superstars and are living their dream and doing what they love. Davey and Young Chimmy are other ones that we kind of like supported since the beginning, and now they're superstars. Davey's like touring in Spain right now, and I also have the honor to have good relationships with them. So they always tell me how grateful they are for my support, and they always look out for me too, and always make sure that I get to witness these amazing moments that they experience somehow. So I think that's what's most fulfilling.
And we are all about Latinas in leadership, making waves. And you are young and you are in such a high position at this job. What advice would you give to someone who's looking to be in your position?
I would say network. I always say that I'm a student, so I'm always learning. So that's the beauty also in networking. You're always going to meet someone that you could learn something out of, or it will give you an opportunity. So always make sure that who you surround yourself with aligns with what you want to do, and be clear about that as well.
And what's something you wish more people understood about being a woman in this industry?
Oh, being a woman in this industry is no joke. It's very hard. You have to balance a lot personally and in other aspects of life. Sometimes I'm at a studio until 6 a.m. and I get home late, or I have to go support an artist that's doing an event in a club, and I'm exposed, to that lifestyle as well. So as a woman, just from that perspective is tough, but also being able to stand your ground and be respected, and being able to show that you are well educated and you are equipped to make these decisions just like our male counterparts. I think in Latin specifically, we're still going through these motions where there tends to be machismo and a lot of sexism within música urbana still. So it's navigating that, and Also, that's why like most of my team in Audiomack, they're all girls. Not because I'm sexist, but because I like to, now that I'm in the position to do so, I like to provide those opportunities and make sure that I'm creating more versions of myself that once they're at the level that they want to be, they're giving back and providing those same opportunities to others.
That actually goes into my next question, because I did hear that you have your own team of women. So how do you build that kind of environment, like just ongoing inspiration and motivation of really being strong in their career?
Yeah, it's just showing them that if I could do it, they could do it, you know, and I'm not their boss. I delegate certain things, but they have the exact potential to be where I am. And I like to tell them that they're all leaders in their respective roles. Like I have Gabby who oversees Mexico, and she's a girl boss in Mexico. I cannot do half the things that she does or know of música mexicana as well as she does. So she's a leader there. I have Eileen, who's my marketing assistant, and she's really good in like the operational side. She likes reports and data, and she's a girl boss in that aspect. And then I have Mimi, who's this little firecracker from El Salvador, and she's just so good on camera and she's so charismatic. And at the beginning, like I would do interviews and that was not my thing. So I respect all of them, and I like to always remind them that they're all leaders and they're all powerfuls, and they will hopefully accomplish even more than I can.
And that's actually one of our questions that we always ask our guests is, what makes you a leader?
I think that's what it is. I think my legacy will be the help and service that I provide to others. But my greatest goal will be for anyone who I am with along the way to be better than I am, to be greater than I am. And for me to look back and see that, you know, like we say in Spanish, puse mi granito de arena. You know, I put my little bit of sand in that moment for them to, or in that person for them to be able to succeed. So that's really what it's about for me.
And Gineyda, you are a boss girl, so I'm actually interested in what things you love to do outside of work.
Well, outside of work, I have like a set schedule of things that I like to do. I'm like in my Pilates princess era, so I'm very much into like health and wellness. I just bought like matcha. I'm into doing my own matcha and things like that. But really, there was a time getting into this where I was such a workaholic and my life revolved around work. And now it's really just finding that work-life balance, being able to disconnect and spend time with my family and do the things I love, like just binge watching TV when I need to, or reading a book, or like I said, taking my Pilates classes, just finding a way to disconnect. I feel like that's very important as well.
And how do you find those ways to de-stress? Because I know you're busy, you have a big job. So I know you mentioned you go Pilates, but what are some other ways that you just de-stress if you're having a busy and stressful day?
Yeah, I also just like to spend time with my sister. That's my best friend. And we share a cat who's like the light of my eyes. So I think just being around their energy whenever I'm going through a lot or I know that I need to disconnect, they help me do that. And another thing that helps me a lot is traveling. I travel a lot for work, so I try to also pencil in some personal travel too, to be able to enjoy just being in a different atmosphere and disconnecting.
And iced matcha or hot matcha? Because now I'm interested.
Definitely. I actually, because our offices are in New York, so I visit every couple of months. And I had a matcha for the first time from a spot over there, and I can't stop thinking about it. I'm like, okay, my next trip to New York, that's the first thing I'm gonna do. But I prefer iced matcha.
Yeah, I remember when I first tried it. I remember when I first tried it a while ago, I was like, I don't know if I can get into this, but when I drink it with vanilla and oat milk, it's just perfect for me.
My favorite is oat milk and lavender.
Yes.
Good.
I love it with lavender too.
Yeah.
going back to your legacy, what's one thing that you hope to spark in the music industry?
Oh, I hope to spark more opportunities for women like myself to be in these senior positions, because I come across so many amazing women who usually, not necessarily in my role, but in other occasions, they are the ones that are doing a lot of the work and making things happen. But there's always that male counterpart that's kind of the face of what's happening. So I hope there's more unity among us, and to be able to raise that voice and share each other's stories and show that impact that we do, even if it's behind the scenes.
And is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to mention?
No, I this has been dope to connect with you. I don't do this as much as like virtual podcasts like this. Lately, I've been doing I visited a university a couple of weeks ago in Puerto Rico and kind of had a conversation like this. So I think that this is important for women like myself and Latinas to be able to share our story, especially with what's going on, and being able to show that we're here doing positive things and making a difference.
And that we're bosses and we're leaders.
Exactly. And we can do it all.
We really can. I feel like that's what I got out of this conversation, is that you're so young and you're so like in a leader position. I was just talking with my coworker too, and I was like, I'm so excited to interview her because she's like, you're just such a leader and someone I would look up to.
Thank you so much. I look up to you as well, being able to do these interviews. I'm telling you, there was a time that I tried to interview people and it just was not my thing. So my hat's off to you as well.
And where can we find you?
Yeah, you could find me on Instagram. It's Gineyda, my first name, Gineyda_. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I do have a profile on Audiomack as well, where I curate my own playlist. It's Gineyda too, so you can hear a little bit of what I like to listen to and stuff like that.
Thank you so much for being with me today.
No, thank you so much, and please keep in touch.
Thank you for joining us in this amazing conversation today. And if you need more information or resources, as always, they'll be in the description below. Please don't forget to follow us everywhere at Latina Leadership Podcast to stay updated with our latest releases, events, updates, and more. And with that, we'll see you next time.